didn't just throw me in and like, oh, figure it out. In some cases it worked, in some cases it didn't. And I think a lot of my experience with AI has been very similar with that. It's like, if you give it the right information, it will give you an answer closer to what you were expecting. So a bit about me, left Romania 12 years ago. I worked in social media back then, so not a development background. I know some programming, but not a lot. I started working with AI, 2016, when we were building chatbots based on customer service data from Salesforce for clients in the US. Back then there was no ChatGPT, there was no Claude, there was nothing like that, so we had to basically build from scratch. The problems were fundamentally the same, actually, because you have to figure out what can we automate from this very complex process, like from these questions. What are the 80% that we can automate? And I think that hasn't fundamentally changed. And then over the years, I worked in data for AI training, which is like basically the people that gave ChatGPT and Anthropic and Google data to train the models. After that, I founded my company that did AI-assisted data structuring. Before that was called RAG, now it's called RAG, the technical term, and we sold it this summer. And now I'm back at Civic, where I helped them essentially go from a Web3 crypto company, identity company, back in the day, all the way into now agentic AI. And you'll see why that is relevant when I'll show you the product later on, but that's not the topic of the conversation right now. I'm going to focus on the AI piece. I think the way I would start, to give you some context for that, is when AI started using data, it was very insecure initially. It just gave access, unlimited access to all of the data you have with that connector. And now we're moving into a world where you're giving access to specific parts of the data for a specific period of time for a specific purpose. And I think that's where the tools are going from that perspective. So yeah, this is a bit of my background. Right now I run go-to-market for Civic, so I'm supposed to be selling you guys Civic Nexus, which I will do later, but not for the entire presentation. So as I said today, getting started with AI is going to be the topic. It's not going to be a super advanced workshop. I'm going to try to be as practical as possible. I'm not going to talk about the future and the vision of AI and where is it going. Like, okay, whatever. It's going to change everything. We already know that. In some respects, it already changed stuff. Working with AI and data, I'll kind of front run that one for a bit. Context and prompts, you'll see why that's important later. And then please follow along if you wish. And I'm going to give you a QR code to get to this presentation. You can also download it on your computer, see it in your browser, and you can copy paste the prompts from it as well. The only ask is just wait for me to get to the slides, so I give you the context for it.
Yes.
So this is the code. If you scan it with your phone, it will take you there. It's going to be a gamma.app link, and that will contain the presentation. Okay. And if you have any questions at any point, like I don't want to talk on my own, please interrupt me. Please raise your hand or just ask me a question. Try to be a back and forth conversation if possible. Cool. Everyone got the deck? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So I think this is what I'm leading with almost is well, AI is your most capable new hire. If you treat them like that, then it's more likely that you're going to get results out of them. If your new hire is expected to run things that you've been doing for 3 years, if you've documented them and you tell them hey, here's an onboarding document with 2 pages of information, it's more likely that they're going to be able to execute on that workflow. If you give them 15 workflows from day one instead of 2 workflows, then they might fail. They might do 3 of them good, in a productive way, and they might do the rest poorly. So that's how I view AI right now. It's more of a leverage than a threat. I think the threat is for people who don't adopt AI, coming from people who will do that job faster. Think of a process that used to take you 2, 3, 4 days because it's all information gathering, summarizing, and combining data together. Now you can do it in probably 1 hour, 30 minutes, something like that, if you put the right tools in the right place. So a little bit of that will come through this entire presentation. So before we dive too deep in, I'm curious where we are in our AI journey. who here uses ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini at least once per week for work-related tasks? Okay, so it's not a one-on-one. You guys can come up here and teach me what you're doing. I'm curious to see what everybody's doing. Who else? Who has paid subscriptions to these AI tools? Again, most people in the room. Great, awesome. Very happy to hear that. Who uses AI for like 10% of their work? More than 10%, like 30%, let's say. 50%? Okay, we have the power users in the house. Nice, nice. So feel free to like kind of challenge me if I'm saying some things you don't agree with. Please let me know. And then who here has automation experience when it comes to workflow building? It's like I know at least a couple of people. Perfect, awesome. So yeah, we have a mix of experience in the audience. So definitely let's have a conversation and share some of our experience working with it. So this is literally the only future-based slide that I have. I think we started off in like pre-2023 in the kind of assistant era. Now essentially we're in the operator era, where we are at the operator of AI. I think we're moving more to a future where AI systems will manage certain parts of the business that are automatable. I think the main thing that we all have to get comfortable with as business people, as specialists, is how much variability can we bring into our process that's acceptable, and we shift our view from seeing AI as a computer program in a traditional sense to this kind of virtual new employee that we prime with information and with process so that it can do more of the things that are easy to do as part of our day-to-day job, and we become managers of those AI agents, they call them now, right? Agentic AI or AI agents. It's when you're managing these outputs. And I think to prepare for that, we need to be able to operate with all these tools. So in this case, I mean, everybody's been talking about prompt engineering, how to build better prompts. I believe it's more about systems and how to put things together beyond the, hey, ChatGPT, you're an expert in marketing, please build me your marketing strategy. No, that's a good start, but how can you add more data to that? How can you add your analytics to that? How can you add your business plan to that? How can you add your customer feedback to that? And all that will make it better. How can you make that repeatable? I need to view this every quarter or every month or every year. So in this case, we're going to look at how we bring in clear instructions, define the expectations. I think that's super important. That's something a lot of people don't think from the get-go when they're talking to AI. It's like, what am I expecting to get from you? What is the structure of the answer that I'm looking for? What information should you focus on in extracting from that, 200-page document that I gave you as context? Sometimes that's the case. You give a PDF or a doc that's like 200 pages, it doesn't know what to look for unless you're very specific. Like, in my output, I'm looking for these terms or these people or these dates or these formats. And by the way, I want that output as Markdown or another Google Doc or something else altogether, like fill in the spreadsheet. And yeah, be able to measure that output is super important to understand whether the AI did a good job or not. Right? Otherwise, how do you know when you get the response, is it good or not? And then next time when you do it, speaking of systems, how is it repeatable? So I came up with this, experience reading, looking at examples. There's a universal prompt formula that can help you structure all of your prompts in that direction. So your experience role, your task is a specific task. This is the context, and these are the constraints, and this is the output. And if you structure everything using this formula, you increase your chances to get a good response in one shot or in few shots, which means you don't have to go back and forth with the tool. So you'll see that throughout the prompts that I prepared for tonight. Yes. But from a kind of gut check perspective, does this make sense? Does this compare to how you're using AI today? Yeah, the experts in the room are nodding, but that's one great track. So, I promised practical stuff, so I'm going to go through a few prompts here. Some of them are more kind of, hey, here's the thing that could be useful for your workflow, and then I'm going to talk about a few of the prompts that I use on a regular basis, both from a personal perspective, but also from a professional perspective. So I want to see a mix of both. So in this case, there's a lot of meetings that happen, and we get transcripts. Sometimes the tool that we're transcribing with is better, sometimes it's worse. How do you extract the actionable items, the structured to-dos from that meeting? So in this case, I have a transcript here I'm going to pull up, which in this case, I'm not going to share that with you because it's an internal company document. So it's a planning meeting that we had. So I'm going to give that as context. And by the way, right now I'm doing copy-paste. So I'm going to take this to Gemini. Gemini is more useful for big context tasks. So in this case, I'm giving it this long file. You can see it's about an hour, 49 minutes of conversations. And then this is the prompt that I'm going to run. Here, as you can see, I structured it to make sure it knows who it is, what their task is, the context, the constraints, and the output formats. So if I run it, then the expectation is that it will be able to give me the task by owner, which is not something I see from many of the AI companions listening on calls. They kind of give you a mixed bag of things. And the cool thing about this is if you have a nice task breakdown, then you can go and put those in your Jira or in your Asana or in Monday.com or wherever you use as a project management tool. So in this case, it went on and said, well, Brad needs to do these things by priority and by deadline. And then I can export also to Sheets if I want in Gemini. And then next needs to do these things. And then for me, a bunch of to-dos I see. Everybody on the call had some things to do.
Question.
Yes.
When you gave it the input had the information which speaker is which.
Yes.
And where did you get the input from?
So that was a transcript from Gemini, from Google's AI companion that was in the call.
So the Google, in what platform was the call on? Google Meet? Or?
Google Meet, yeah.
Okay, so basically everybody logged in Google Meet,
Yes.
was logged in Google Meet, and how did the transcript know which speaker was which? Because it extracted the information from their name in Google Meet, or
Yes.
because it analyzed their tone of voice and it recognized them by voice? Which
Both.
of these options?
Both.
So
You need both.
I can use, you said you had Gemini Pilot or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
the one in the top corner right in Meet that you activate is like a
Yeah, but
transcript
it's
tool.
synchronized with Meet. My question is if I can get the same kind of transcript that recognizes the speakers if I hold the meeting one face-to-face or in another software besides Google Meet.
So face-to-face, you need to record the meeting somehow, right? So there's
You
doing
can
that.
use also granola.
Yeah, or Chris, or Fieldy AI, or Rumi AI, or there's like 100+ tools out there that do exactly what Google does with transcriptions, but they does it multi-platform. So you have an AI assistant that joins the meeting, and it's free to record everything, and by joining the meeting, it knows who the other participants are.
Because they are logged in
Yes.
in their own accounts.
Yes.
My question is, if the meeting is face-to-face like we are doing it right now,
Then you're going to have person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4. I think
Categorize voice,
that's my experience, yeah.
Yeah.
And if the,
and it doesn't screw up the voices.
most of the times it gets it right.
From your experience, I have my own experience in this, and I'm asking the question from your experience to see maybe
I think
if
2
yours is
years,
better.
2 years ago was bad. Last year was okay-ish. This year I'm finding more and more tools are very sharp. Because if you fine-tune specifically on that, like special purpose AI, will be able to tell a voice apart from the other person. Especially if the recording is good, right? I think that's the other thing. If the environment is noisy, if the microphone is bad, then those things are harder to detect. But in this case, I mean, this was a work call, everybody was logged in, we knew who the speakers were.
So you had a lot of data about the identity of the speakers,
Yeah.
and this is why it mapped out
Yeah.
this kind of output.
Mhm.
And in a meeting like this, how we would be mapping? We need to log in on something to extract the name and attach it to our voice or how?
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. Yeah, because you log in and then it starts identifying who's speaking. Because, like, you know, when the screen lights up on the edges of it when you are speaking, as if your microphone is active, then it can attach that part of the transcript to the person's phone. So that's, I mean, you need this kind of data to be able to run.
Thank you.
I mean, we record right now all the meetings in the company. I think it's the most efficient thing that you can do. And you can extract insights. It's like, hey, what did we discuss last week about product? What are marketing strategies that are working or not working? What did we agree on two weeks ago? So super useful for
We don't do physical meetings at all now.
Well, we're a remote company, so for us, everybody's all over the map. Like, I'm here now, but I'm also going to be in the States next year, and then we have people in California, we have people in Germany, we have people in South Africa, all over. So it's very hard to run the company without these things. It used to be like a pain because everything was manual.
Yeah, I wonder how they did it with email.
Before email, or
Or no, with email before this.
I mean, it was a lot slower. Like, because I was working remote back in 2018 when we didn't have all these like recording tools and all this AI, and it was a lot slower. Decisions were a lot more difficult to make. We shipped stuff in more sequential methods rather than like parallel work streams. So that enables us now to work in parallel. All right. Any other questions on this one? I do have 5 more prompts, so I do want to go through the entire list, but definitely appreciate.
Excuse me, can you share again the QR code?
QR code? Sure.
Thank you.
Where it is?
Just 1 second.
I also have a curiosity about this kind of prompt. Have you ever tried it for a meeting in Romanian? Does it only work in English? So I tried something similar. It was a meeting in Romanian, and the topics were totally off. The AI said we talked about drug usage, which we definitely
That was definitely, yeah. I think it depends on the model. Some models are better than others. You need to figure out which assistant works better for Romanian.
That was last year, I think. So
It's gotten better this year.
I can tell you that Nexus works great for Romania.
Well, that's Anthropic. It's an Anthropic model. Yeah, so Anthropic works really well for most languages. I think it still struggles in Hungarian, Turkish, yeah, some advanced Arabic.
No.
Well, there's not enough data, right, on the internet. The internet is mostly in English. It's great most of the internet, so it's mostly great at English. Romanian is decent because it's a Latin language, so but it's still
We have Romanian products. We have, for
Yes.
example, Action Point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Romanian product, made first attempt to Romanian speech to text recognition.
Yeah, so I think using tools that are built by founders from that country will give you always better results, like for Romanian or for any other language specifically. But I mean, I was surprised to see even in conversations like where I'm talking half in Romanian, half in English in the same call, like, will get me 90% of the way there. So,
Nexus AI transcribes meetings.
no, it doesn't, but you can talk to it in Romanian as well. It's in English and it will respond. Kind of like how ChatGPT does it or Cloud. So it's an experience. Right. So the next thing that I found very useful to use AI for is creating evaluation scales and assigning weights to criteria. So this is like a pretty specific example for, like, if I'm trying to make a decision between 3 marketing automation tools, usually that involves a lot of time and evaluation and reading about these tools and understanding how they work. Like, I would like to skip forward and get a baseline from the AI based on what I'm trying to use it for, and based on my budget, and based on my other restrictions. So in this case, I'm looking at 3 platforms, a B2B SaaS company, 50K annually, a team of 8 marketers, and an integration with HubSpot. Very kind of standard restrictions, and I need to use a few evaluation criteria to justify it work. And then I want a criteria table with weights and justification. So I'm being very specific about what I want. So in this case, I'm going to select the whole thing. Let's see. Okay, and then I'm going to use Claude for this one. Not for a very particular reason, but I want to show you multiple assistants and multiple chat tools and how they behave, and you'll start to see difference between them, and they're good for various tasks. I particularly like Claude for more structured work, like if you're building code, if you're building tables, if you're building any kind of data output, Claude tends to give you better results. ChatGPT is better at writing stuff, more kind of narratives, more tone of voice, stuff like that. You'll see how that works later.
And Gemini.
Gemini is good for a lot of context. So if you want to give it a lot of data, like I give it a full transcript, it's better than the others at not erroring out because it ran out of context. Because Claude, I think, has 200,000 tokens, ChatGPT, I don't know exactly, and then Gemini has 1 million. So
2 million, Gemini 3.
3 million now? Yeah, and they're the best on like how much context you can ingest. And that's like kind of thousands of pages or tens of thousands of pages of context. So. But also, I will be careful with that as well, because the more context you give it, the harder it is to like get the specifics from your requirements. So that's another interesting thing. So let's see what it does. And I personally struggle with this because like it takes a long time for me to go and research and come up with the criteria, and I need to like look at different systems. So I have to compare the systems to decide. And in this case, it follows my instructions and says, well, let's look at what criteria do I have. Well, I have cost of ownership, I have integration capability, automation depth, team adoption, and scalability. They're sort of weighted the same-ish. There's a few that are more important, so integration and automation. And then scalability is probably not as important because my team is not that big. So if you look at the scoring matrix, we can see that in this case, Marketo had the highest score based on the criteria that I gave it. And then it's going to start justifying why it gave those weights. And you can go and challenge it if you don't agree. Right? In this case, maybe I don't agree that Marketo is the tool that I want to go with. Maybe I want to go with Active Campaign because budget is more important for me. So I want to increase the weight of the total cost. So in that case, Active Campaign will get much higher weight. So we can see here, Marketo is sort of around that budget, but to the higher end of it, maybe over if I go over with the setup cost, and then it tries to justify why, well, it has native upslope connector, industry different complex workflows, and it compares the others as well. But in this case, Pardot, it tells me, well, it has a Salesforce dependency, because if you know Pardot, it's a Salesforce company. And then Active Campaign, that's the cheapest one of the lot. It has integrations, but it's not as complex as Marketo. It's good for SMB. It's not as good for like if you're running a bigger shop with more complex workflows, right, that you want to automate. And it's not as scalable, right? It's also like not the most scalable tool. And then it gives you the final response and the risk assessment. So all of this is basically like a day or a day and a half of work that we have had to do and go through each feature, compare them, and then think about like, well, how much weight should I give it? What score should I give it? How should I give it? And now I have an opportunity to have a conversation and see, well, I challenge this point or this point, or I want to move it in that direction, but it takes a lot of time.
I remember that I sold such an analysis to a client a few years back because I did spend like 10 hours on it.
Exactly, like this is the thing.
But
Like,
if you do that.
it used to take a lot of time for us to do these analysis. Like you have to do it internally as a stakeholder or as a consultant, and just this shortcuts it significantly, and you get 95% of the way there. What you'll see though, sometimes it does give you different results every time you run it. So if you're not, if you don't give it,
If you run it again, you get different results. So,
exactly. So I think
it's like you have to work.
So the way I try to kind of front run that is if you're able to give even more granular direction. So if you want to lock in the weights directly in your prompt, then you can create consistency, right? So for example, if I go back up here, so let's say if if I give the prompt including these criteria, then it's more likely to give me consistent responses afterwards. If I told it again, hey, just give me some criteria and some weights that you decide, more likely it's gonna vary.
It's probabilistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can use a project, for example, in which you give it instructions and the weights, the criteria,
Yeah,
the
it'll
definitions, and
yeah.
everything, and then it will be more consistent in what it generates inside the project.
Exactly.
Project in cloud, you mean?
In cloud, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can also bring data from other sources, which I'll show in a few slides as well. So this is all data that like I have in context, right? I brought the data from here, and it was able to do the task like that. The other option, yeah, you can have it in a project, you can have it in like Google Drive if you want, you can have it in your email, you can have it in your calendar. I'm going to show some of those later as well. So this one is the prompt that we use with ChatGPT because it's more about writing. And this is the stuff that is very close to my heart because I used to do this in the beginning of my career. It's like, how do you take a piece of content from the client and then repurpose it for 3 different channels? And in this case, I'm going to take a LinkedIn post that I posted a few days ago. Let's see if I signed in. No, I did not. Okay, so that's on me. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn and hopefully it'll let me see the content without login. No, it is not going to do that. So I'm just going to sign in. Just let me agree and join. Okay, sure.
No, because that's sign up.
Sign in. Yeah, I mean, they should have done this better, but anyway. Okay, so that's not going to work. Yeah, why not? So let me get my LinkedIn post from a different source. Why not have multiple laptops if you run into issues? I think a pro tip for people presenting is like if you forget.
Don't do so many live demos, right?
Well, no, live demos is one, and that's like if you don't sacrifice something to the demo gods, then you have this issue. The other thing is like if you're switching laptops 1 hour before the presentation, you're likely going to
Don't
run
worry,
into-
even Google failed the live demo for Meta or who was it, some big other company, so.
Even Healthcare, a couple of days ago.
Oh, that failed the internet. Yeah. It's super funny.
Not only with the presentation.
Okay.
Mhm.
That should solve it. Okay, so this is the LinkedIn post that I wanted to show.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you can see here, basically, I talked a lot about my use of Nexus and like how I use it in my day-to-day work. And now I want to essentially transfer that to newsletter post. And I want to transfer that to a Twitter thread. I want to transfer that into a podcast intro script, and then into a carousel outline. And I'm going to use ChatGPT for that. So, you know, I could have cheated and just gone to the previous ChatGPT conversation, but I did test all these prompts, and I just realized that was talking. So anyway, so I left a place over here, paste your post. So I'm going to paste this above that. And the other reason I like ChatGPT is it actually does keep a lot of memories about you. So if you develop the tone of voice with it, then it will sort of give you something in that ballpark without too much nudging in that direction. Whereas others like Claude or Gemini will be more generic, more kind of robotic. So let's see what that does. In this case, I'm using 5.1, which is like their new default model. It's not that good, but it's fast. I think 5 was better, and I would say 03 was better. I regret the removal of 03. So I'm just thinking about that. So in here,
You cannot change the thinking because on the drop down
oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
have the thinking.
Yeah, and I did it on auto just for most things, but if I have other work to do, then I might just use 03, for example, if I have like a more in-depth task is reason. Say for like GPT 5 thinking is, I think, better than 5.1. But in this case, for brevity, we use this one. So,
Like deep research is what we right?
no, deep research is a method. O3 is the model that they use behind if you, like, it used to be specifically dedicated to that, but it's better for more in-depth reasoning tasks, not necessarily deep research per se. So if you need more deep insights extracted rather than a quick answer, then I would probably use O3
Okay.
from my experience. Alright, so in this case, it knows my voice, thought leadership, operational clarity, confidence utility, great, and then created a full thread. Very much thread style, I can just go and copy paste this directly into Twitter monitor. These are a paragraph. And the other thing that I do in ChatGPT is I give it system prompts, and one of the things that I've added to system prompts is to avoid certain words and avoid the M dash, that little dash that it likes to use everywhere. So if you prime it with that, they'll give you better outputs. They're less ChatGPT-like. So that's why, as you can see, it only has one dash. I don't know if I would prime it, it probably has 4 dashes. Say a podcast script, and then a carousel that I can drop into Canva, for example, and create a more interactive post on it.
And you would say that this is your tone voice?
Let's see. I mean, let's look at the carousel, right? Like, after you've heard me talk for the past, 30-ish minutes, what do you think?
Sounds like ChatGPT.
Sounds a bit over.
Yeah, this is still, I would probably work this.
It has a way of finishing sentences and just the way you're reading it. It has the same pace.
This
I
thing.
would recognize it.
Yeah. So,
Not even the dashes, because if you prompt it at the settings with instead of dashes use like commas and stuff, they're not gonna do that anymore. But it's just like the way you read things, you can recognize it's ChatGPT.
It's a bit too formal.
yes, it is a bit formal. I agree. But it's a good starting point for me to start editing versus starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does 85% of the work instead of me doing like starting from a blank page, which is always annoying if you've ever written content before. This kind of gives you something to stand on. And that's why I think it's not good for like fully automated yet.
What would you say are the most frustrating things when it comes to I need to edit things? Like what are you editing in general?
I think it's certain words that I would probably not use. I think that's one of them. I don't see anyone on this particular slide specifically. I think sentence structure, that's one. I try to have more conversational posts. The other thing is sometimes it's over-explaining. It's overly verbose on like the topic that can be understood from context. It just says it out loud. I'm like, just not do that. Let's delete this 2 sentences.
You can also add that into the system prompt.
Yeah.
To ask it to be brief rather than verbose.
Exactly, and actually there's settings now in the models themselves, like I think Claude has that specifically in the way you want your output. It can be succinct, it can be verbose, it can be standard, so you can even have that type of configuration.
But for example, if you dictate something to it, like use the voice mode, ChatGPT or any other model can't analyze it, like the tonality of your voice, right?
It can, but the thing that I have with voice is like I have a better sentence structure in writing than I have in my kind of voice day to day. So I would have to think a lot about like what am I going to say to ChatGPT in order for it to have a good output. Whereas when I write something down, it's already structured, it's already like coherent. Whereas when I'm talking about it, like, oh, I remember I need to add this thing to the first 2 paragraphs, and that gets it confused.
But I think it would be probably more efficient if you just, instead of giving it just one LinkedIn post to analyze, would it be possible to have it analyze all of your LinkedIn posts? Because then the data volume would be much higher, so maybe the tone of voice would be more, it would be closer to your less
You
forward.
can. The challenge there is actually getting data off of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the most horrible platforms when it comes to extracting data from it. So it's very hard for you to get any data out of LinkedIn without breaking their terms of service.
It's just an example.
But in general, yes, I agree. I think the more context we're able to give it, the more likely it is to follow the pattern that you have. But in this case, like, I'm limited also by the time here and the amount of context I can add. All right, any other questions on this one? If not, I will keep going. So this was the content repurposing. Now I'm going to show you some examples from my day-to-day stuff, which is going to be using a bit more tools and data than copy-pasting stuff here. And now we're going to switch into Nexus, which is the product that we've built. So in this case, what it's doing is looking at my calendar and it's trying to analyze where I'm spending most of my time. This is something that I actually tried. Before using Nexus, I tried it with ChatGPT and I tried with Copilot native connectors that they have, and I didn't get good results. They didn't get all the data, they didn't give me all the information that I wanted. So when I use Nexus for it, because it's connected via an MCP server that we configured, and we looked at the caveats from the standard one, it's able to give the complete information. Because I think what all LLMs tend to do is they tend to sample data. And we see this with HubSpot connectors, we see this with like any kind of big data connectors, and then for calendar is no more different. Yes?
ChatGPT can view all the calendar, no problem. Can connect or even Gemini. What does Nexus do besides that?
So it can, but when I try to run the prompts on them with the standard configuration, it wasn't able to do the things I wanted to do.
Even if they are connected, ChatGPT and Gemini?
There are limits in API connections.
Yeah, so if
And
you
usually this works through API.
Nexus.
No, in general, platforms, when they extract data, they have some limits, because you cannot pull your calendar from 5 years ago. Yes, the tool has access to it, but in order to extract the data, it needs to paginate it. There's a large volume of data.
So it's
And they fail at that process of extracting the data with pagination. It's not that they don't have access to it.
Yeah,
They cannot really process it.
and you need the connector to be primed to do that, to be able to go to the paginate. Otherwise, it'll just subsample.
So this is where Nexus comes in and does this.
Yeah, and this is where it comes in and does this, and I am able to just paste this in and bring up Nexus. Similar chat interface with the other tools. You'll see here that I have prepared a toolkit with AM101. So we're going to be looking at a few tools. So Apify, Google Calendar, Sheets, Notion, Slack. Those are the ones that we're going to be talking to in a few minutes. So go back to the chat. And also zoom back in. And by the way, if you're interested in trying it out, nexus.civic.com is the address. It's free for now until early December. So in this case, I'm going to ask it to check my Google Calendar, and then do a time on it. And then it'll create also a Notion page, which
you already integrated it with your Google Calendar, permissions, things like that. So you did the integration.
Yes, and the way it works, it asks me to authenticate with my Google,
Yeah.
right? And then it will essentially authenticate me for a short period of time to get this information, and then it'll provide the information in context here.
So the difference between, just to get it right, the difference between authenticating Google Calendar with ChatGPT and authenticating Google Calendar via Nexus is that the context window is on ChatGPT is a lot smaller, it samples data, and with the help of Nexus, the sample data volume is a lot bigger.
Yes, and it's able to iterate through the calendar more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see here, I have insights, I have meeting clustering patterns, heavy, intense days, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. It tells me like, what am I focusing on? You can see I'm starting the week with GTM strategy, then I'm following with team lead sync, and we have a lot of client demos on Wednesdays usually, and Thursdays, and then Friday's more meeting light. It's more like a structured day. So it's able to tell me all of that based on the 253 hours of the past 30 days. So you could find in my calendar. So you can see here, this is how my life looks like, based on what my work calendar and like sort of my personal overflow in the work calendar.
Couple time doesn't look good.
I know, right? I should do a better job with that.
It's back in the calendar.
If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. And we have a separate calendar that's on my personal Gmail, which I didn't know. But yeah, it's one of the few ways like I can see, well, if I'm doing too much, for example, meetings and syncs, like, can I delegate some of them? Right? So for me, that's an important thing. Like, or do I need to hire someone to...
So, airport travel is personal, they don't want to pay.
Well, that was, I think, for a personal trip, so...
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was when I went to my parents' place in Bayamare to see my cat who was struggling with something. So that was like, I needed to block that off, otherwise people take my Calendly and they book time when exactly I'm flying. So, some of those funny things.
So you mark it as personal initiative?
Yes. Yeah. But this is a simple tool that I try to run every month, so I stay on track of like what's going on with my work. I think a byproduct of using too much AI in your work is like you tend to go very, very fast. And then I end up being the bottleneck because I have to review stuff for other people also going very, very fast. And they come to me and say, hey, can you review these 3 articles by Friday? I'm like, these articles are like 500 words each. And I'm like, I have 5 other meetings before that.
You should build a reviewer assistant.
AI reviewing AI, then reviewing other AI. Yes. That's actually what I do. It's like one of my favorite things to do when I receive somebody sending me something to review. It's like I send it to either ChatGPT or Cloud. I'm like, hey, give me the top 3 red flags in this thing, or roast.
Bottlenecks or things like that.
Yeah, roast this article for me and tell me what's bad about it.
So how do we find Nexus?
If you go to nexus.civi.com, it's here.
Okay.
I don't know what Nexus is. What is it?
It's an AI orchestrator. It connects
Orchestrator.
to
You did it?
server.
It's yours?
It's the company I work for. Not mine personally, but I helped build it.
AI orchestrator, okay.
Yeah, so essentially to connect all these tools to your AI, you may have some in Claude, some in ChatGPT, some in both, but sometimes you just don't have the right connectors, or the connectors are limited. You can do only like certain read actions, or you can't access certain parts of the data. So you want to have as much flexibility as possible, so you want to make sure you're able to use the full MCP server. In this case, these are all MCP servers, which are, what should I call it? If you know what an API is, basically what API is to web, MCP is to AI. So it helps bring data in a way that the AI doesn't have to hallucinate it. So I think before, if you ever used kind of large amounts of data, dumped it into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, it goes through the LLM. That's the disadvantage. All the data goes through, and it comes out probabilistic, right? It comes out 90% or 95%, but you want it 100%. So if you do that through MCP servers, essentially what the AI does, it tells the infrastructure, in this case the server itself, hey, fetch me this data, and then bring it into context unaltered. And that way you get actually the table that you wanted, the SQL query result that you wanted, the document that you wanted with the exact words, as opposed to something approximately there.
And is the data that's here used for like training the model, or does it become public information or something?
No, that's the other advantage. because you can
I
create.
think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, it's ring fenced, right? In this case, in our case, like the way we're using the API, like that API does not contribute to training data, and then the data does not leave Nexus unless you send it to the LLM yourself. But then it doesn't go to the training data as with ChatGPT, for example, the public. Yes.
It was like a RAG, a vectorial database or something like that?
It's sort of an on-demand RAG, I would call it. It's not using vector databases per se. It's using the database behind these two. Like it's calling the Google Calendar database.
Yes.
But it's using the LLM to decide what to call. Right? It's forming the request on demand. But without the
So
vector
for the
database.
reply, he uses LLM from the API to get.
So once the data comes in, yes, we use the
So
LLM
basically,
behind.
every tool here is an agent connected to the API, which runs on your MCP server.
Yeah, you can call it that way.
And you authenticate it. Once you use Nexus, you authenticate each agent, which is trained for a certain API to get post, and then you use.
Well, it's more than get post. I think every tool has a series of capabilities, right? And each capability is defined in a very detailed way here, which I'll try to zoom in so you can actually see. So we prime these, so you can actually instruct the LLM how to call that particular API action, or the connector action. And then you can add cool things like guardrails. So in this case, I want to only list verified calendars, not the unverified calendars. I might have random calendars in there that I don't want to have in my list. So all these things are configurable. The other thing in Nexus is you can eliminate some of these tools. So if you only want to read access and get access, but not create events for me, then you can limit the way the tool is being done. That's
the MCP server ID and URL will remain the same if I add or uninstall tools.
There's no URL per se.
Okay, because it runs on the web.
Yeah, this all runs within Nexus, and there's no other URL. If you install or uninstall, essentially what happens in the back is we either spin up or spin down Kubernetes.
And the URL remains the same.
Yeah. The server knows how to speed these up on demand for you. That's the other thing. Like a lot of these tools are more secure because you want to only spin them up when you need them, not hold the connection permanently to Google Calendar. Right?
I may have a suggestion, but maybe at the end.
All right. Couple more prompts, if you bear with me, and then we can have more in-depth Q&A at the end. So this was the Time Assistant, and this is a planning tool. So in this case, the font is a bit smaller, but here specifically, what I'm asking it is, hey, go to my Slack channel where all of my team posts competitor links. Look at the data in there, so you can see there's a Slack channel. I call it by Slack ID because that's how Slack works. For the past 30 days, and extract competitor mentions, product updates, pricing changes, stuff that like my team flagged. So I can go and see, well, how does this adjust my GTM strategy? How do I need to react to that? How the market is changing? That's a channel that gets widely used, so it's hard to follow on your own.
Can you do the same for WhatsApp?
If you have a WhatsApp MC, yes. I don't see why not. So in this case, I'm going to go.
You have WhatsApp integration?
Not yet. If you have a use case, we can talk about it.
Yes, of course.
WhatsApp gives API access only for business accounts.
Yes. Yeah, but a lot of these MCP servers actually behind the scenes, we had to go and talk to Slack, we have to go and talk to Intuit, or we have to go and talk to like these big companies, Microsoft or Google. For Google, for example, to get access to the level of authentication that you need to get some tasks done, like get data from Google Drive, for example, or write emails, we have to go through a type 2 CASA review, which is a security review, which we need to pass in order to give people access to data that way. So a lot of these companies have a lot of security checks before they give you this level of access. In Slack, for example, to get this configured, I have to create a Slack bot that I then add to my channel, that I then use to retrieve this information. There's no way to retrieve information directly otherwise. Now it's creating a spreadsheet with the findings. So we'll give it a little bit of time. He's going to go through every sheet, and let me see if I can grab the sheet in the meantime to maybe see it populate in real time. Because it does give me the URL here, so I can go and spin it up as we're waiting. And you can see it already has data. And it's all from our internal conversations at Civic. So people found these competitors online, and now Nexus is basically saying, well, what is the threat there? What is the messaging that they're bringing to the market? What are the angles they're bringing to their go-to-market strategy? How is that relevant to what we're doing? So it ranked these three as the top three for the past 30 days, and then it started building these separate sheets, which it hasn't filled in yet. Oh, this one just came in. There you go. So it goes into detail for each of the competitors. And then I can ask it essentially to go at one level deeper. It's like, hey, can you go and research this further for me if I want? But at the end of the day, I'll have a full spreadsheet of recommendations, including feature matrix, once it's populated, and then I can also look at the raw data at the end. But it's still going. And sometimes this is limited by just the pure nature of the tool that you're working with. So in this case, it has to go sheet by sheet to add values. For Notion, for example, it has to go block by block to add values. So it's doing a lot of tool calls, which takes a bit more time than creating a Google Doc, for example, which is like just a block of text. And there are some idiosyncrasies, like it can't really do formatting well yet. And for Google Sheets, what I found it does, instead of creating formulas, it likes to just give you the raw data. So instead of making A plus B equals C, it'll just like write the number in C, which is very helpful sometimes because it understates. So in this case, if you
hallucinate, you mean?
yeah, if you're trying to do math, it will do some. That's the issue that I found. Let's see where we are here.
And aside from prompting it to generate outputs in the chat, can you automate processes like get data from one of the connectors and maybe send it to the other one?
Yes, you can. I mean, this is essentially what I did. Is I told it to get data from Slack and bring it into Google Sheets.
Yeah, but you did it manually.
Yeah, but I can also create a scheduled task, which the feature is in preview right now, so I'm not going to demo it live for obvious reasons. But yeah, we can schedule like, I need to do this weekly or monthly or daily or every few hours. Like it's a cron job. So you can schedule it when you want. But that's, I think, the other thing that we're discovering as we're building in this space is like, there's the workflow people. They're very much like, I need to see every step and have arrows from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. We think there's going to be a change in this whole workflow space where you have a trigger. So it can be the time-based trigger, it can be something happened, like you received an email, you received an invoice. And then there's going to be an agentic step, or several agentic steps, where you have an LLM that decides what to do, based on the criteria that you have. And then you have an output that you use as a draft, or you use as input for some other process, or you need to review it. And that's less ABCD kind of prescriptive flow, and it creates a lot more flexibility in terms of what data can come in. There's a lot of the complaint that we're hearing from customers that don't have in-house teams to manage data and to manage complex CRMs or ERPs, is if your data is like in Excel spreadsheets, and your vendor data comes in from emails and attachments, and then you're reconciling that from invoices, those are already 4 different data types. And that's where I think AI is perfect for, but you need to bring all that data in context in a way that AI can make sense.
And you use it for like company. So for example, to have an email, like okay, Maria, I don't know, whatever, and other people, but like the firm's documents, let's say that more people have access to all the documents rather than to create like an email address that everybody can access, so teams can automate stuff.
Oh, so you send stuff to the email address, or?
Yeah, basically that domain,
Mhm.
like to have an account with that domain, so it becomes like a team place of automating stuff.
Yeah, so even more so, what you can do in Nexus, you can create teams, like organizations, and then invite everybody there. And then you can have like certain tools that people share. There's like not a single point of, there's only a single point of connection. Then you can authenticate that for everyone in the team. So for example, in our case, our operations team used to use Grow, which is a BI tool for visualizing dashboards and seeing data from analytics and whatnot from our product. And now, essentially what they have in Nexus is they have a civic operations organization, which actually I can show you. So here I have my personal account, but then I have a bunch of like other organizations here. So for civic operations, I have a few toolkits here that do specific things. So they're tied to a specific part of the database, only with read access, so that when operation goes in, says, hey, I want my weekly report to show team leads the activation rates, it already knows how to run those queries. Because that's the other thing, like if you are able to add context to your request every time, you don't have to write those like big prompts. Instead, you can just say, hey, I just need my weekly report. And because it knows the weekly report definition is this bigger thing that I stored in there, then it'll run that and understand the database without having to spend time querying, like, oh, what does this mean? What does this table do? What does this column mean? How do we track conversions? What's an activation?
This is like projects in ChatGPT.
Sort of, yes. Yeah. The concepts are sort of the same. Skills in Cloud, projects in Cloud, ChatGPT projects. I think this is even more mechanical because it's at MCP level, so it's like on the specific tool. So in this case, for the database connector specifically that I'm using, we're priming it with this information, as opposed to like the entire project itself. So, I am the thing that's standing between you and pizza, so I want to make sure I finish up the presentation. I have one more prompt that's more of a personal one that I tend to use. One of the first things I did with Gemini Bard, if you remember, well, it was called Bard, not Gemini back then. Google's LLM, because it was able to connect to the internet and everybody else couldn't. I did some investment analysis, which is like basically backtesting some ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, to understand where to place my money from my retirement accounts, based on like historical analysis, which would have taken me probably weeks to do, and it took me like probably an hour with the help of Bard. And I remember that. And I wanted to show you what it's able to do if you have access to a scraper. In this case, I'm using Apify inside Nexus, but it can be obviously ChatGPT or Cloud or whatever it is. So I'm going to go back to my toolkit. The reason I'm showing this is like if you're able to define your research task, like the thing that you would have to do manually, then it can go out and scrape the information for you, do the comparison, and come back. So this is actually a pretty cool tool to use for scraping bots.
Sites where it's login needed?
No, that's not going to work. No, it's only publicly available information.
Even if I give it the login credentials?
Not for this tool. I think there are tools that can do that, but we don't support them yet.
Okay.
That's one of the more difficult tasks. Okay, so in this case, I'm using analysis.
I got this. I simulated it in Gemini.
Oh, you already got it in Gemini? Nice.
Is it for Gemini or for...
It can work in any of them now, because all of them have access to the internet. But in this case, I'm using Nexus for Amplify.
Let's compare.
Let's compare, yeah, I'm curious. So let's see.
The scenarios would be nice.
Yeah, so once it finishes, I'll scroll back to the scenarios.
this is much more detailed what it does.
Yeah, I think the way we configured the API endpoint is we ask for more detailed responses. So it doesn't give a very short one. That's the other thing, like I think depending on the type of LM you use, you'll get slightly different experience. Okay.
Next one is what is LLM?
This is a Claude Sonnet 4, I think.
For this?
Yeah, for this specific, yeah. The verbose version. So in this case, let's see. So it tells me name, week, month, want to open capital. Let's see. It gives me by age, which is good. Let's see. Key allocation strategy, volatility, metrics. Okay, so this is what I should be expecting: volatility, worst single year, max drawdown. Okay, so this is the bull case, bear case for the portfolio, and I was specific on what I wanted to invest in. So invest only in tech ETFs.
Yeah, let's see the 10-year scenario.
10-year scenario, okay. So I got a bull case of 800K, sorry, for 200. I got a base case of
800.
809.
Here it's 623,000.
So by year 10.
Yes.
Yeah. The bull case or the
Bull.
case? Okay.
Base is 432. 432.
Okay, that's 518 base here.
Bear is 269.
Okay, so 326.
It's more optimistic.
Yeah, this is more optimistic.
And it's
here,
much more
more-
detailed. It's
Yeah.
There's an 80,000 differences, no?
Well, I mean, it's different models. Looking at the same data, but they're interpreting it in different ways.
Yeah, if you run it again, it will give you some
It also depends, I realized, how you aggregate the results.
Yes.
Because it can be capitalized year by year, because it's an investment year.
Yeah, let's actually.
Or it can go directly to.
Give me the portfolio for year 10. Let's see what we get. Yeah, because I think that's where the difference will come from, is like how you allocate the portfolio.
Okay. So it's entire simulations.
Yes, I think that's what I like about it. Like it's not just saying, hey, allocate this much and this much. It also runs scenarios for you.
Okay.
And you can even like force it to the Monte Carlo simulation if you want.
Like in bear market, bull market, something.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, and it tells you like, hey, if you had 3-4 years of bull market, you might want to rotate into something more defensive.
Yes, yes.
Unless there's like a weird scenario where it's pumping money in the market. Yeah, it tells you how many loss harvesting moments you have, how many moments where you want to rotate from one type of holding to another. So it gets into a very deep analysis of what you want to do. All right.
That's for the Nexus
Very close.
orchestration.
What
Ce se bazează
Claude.
Claude.
Yeah.
Claude care zice că ăla este top în tabele și matrix.
Exactly. Data handling.
There is a tip here also. In the stage the
Sorry for remembering.
LLMs are now. If you push the LLM more times to just go into it and do it again, you pretty much get to the same result.
Okay.
Yeah, because then it uses its own results as data entry, and then it converges to the same point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the important thing is that it doesn't say you are going to die all in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Same for the investments. Like if I scrape, for example, some websites that were optimistic about those ETFs, then I'll have more optimistic results.
What did you scrape?
In this case, let's see. So I asked the question, and I started launching some actors, but I did a generic scraping. So in this case, ETF tech historical performance for the tickers that I was looking for, and then did volatility for 10 years. So it did, essentially it did a Google search for me.
Through Appify.
Yes.
So you didn't tell it specifically to scrape something specifically, and you didn't give it a source
No, it didn't.
to scrape.
No, I
It
just told
just
it.
decided on its own
Yeah.
what to scrape.
Exactly.
And what's the difference if you give to a generic LLM Claude, generic Claude, the same prompt versus using Appify?
I think you're going to end up with the bias that Claude or ChatGPT has introduced when it comes to like, if this person is asking certain things, then this is the route to go. Like you go and have their search engine instead of Appify, which is doing the scraper.
And who decided what to give Appify, what to scrape? The Claude model.
Yes.
So when you gave the prompt, the Claude model behind this chat right now decided and told Appify scrape this kind of data.
So it essentially, so Appify, it tried to find what's it called, an actor inside Appify that could align with my request
Oh,
as a
okay,
user.
so it finds the actor.
Yeah, because it uses a task, like a tool inside the Appify MCP, but I don't call it directly myself. Like I don't need to know anything about that.
Yeah, exactly. So you didn't know what
Yeah.
actor, who, where, what
Yeah, I don't care
data.
about that.
So it just selected the actor on its own based on the prompt you gave it.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I'm not happy with that method, right, I can go and say, hey, specifically use this method
Yeah,
and go to these websites
yeah.
and then get me the information from there.
An actor is like an agent, right?
Yeah. It's an
The
AI.
thing is that based on his prompt, the LLM decided one of the words or I don't know, maybe 10 of the words he used to use a certain tool for a certain parameter tool has. And then he called that the actor, as he said,
Yeah.
and then the response was also from that parameter.
Yeah, exactly. I understand, yeah.
Then processed by the LLM, and the result is this.
So I did say
You ask for the sources, I think.
gather the insights using Appify. So I did call that specifically because I didn't want to try to.
Also specified.
Yeah, I specified.
Okay.
It's easier if you specify the tool.
If you know it, yes.
Yeah.
But it's nice that you didn't specify the actor, exactly the actor, because there are hundreds or thousands of them.
Yes, but because every actor has parameters, and once the LLM decides the parameter, it
Yeah.
will go from the session.
That's a very good
That's
thing.
the basics.
Because when I used Appify on my own, I looked through hundreds of actors to give me what I needed to scrape.
Sources.
This is a custom solution. Yes.
Yeah, now it's giving you the sources that it went and found, like Seeking Alpha. So it found a variety of websites, not just the issuer of the ETF, but also like third-party information. And now it's trying to give me all of the background explanation. But they don't have access to everything because some websites still block scraping. Alright, so this was the last prompt that I had. So if you can bear with me for another few minutes, I'm going to wrap and then we can have pizza and we continue the conversation. So, told you about Nexus. Essentially, we built it as an engine for AI-driven workflows. Like you can combine mix and match tools. Our goal is to combine intelligence data with no engineering required. That's, I think, the reason we're building this. And I think there's a huge gap in the market right now. Everybody's building stuff for engineers, and it's extremely frustrating as a non-engineer when I want to use different data points and integrate things and create a bigger task. I'm hit with, oh, you actually need to code this and create this like whatever programming first. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So we're essentially like the first MCP client that's dedicated to non-coders. I mean, that's how I try to explain it.
We need to talk again. Because I just have
Why is
perfect slide for
the vibe and everything, right?
I try to stay away from vibing because I do think you can do very cool, thorough things with it. I think vibing is kind of superficial perceived right now. I know if anybody's vibe coded here, I've vibe coded it.
Everybody.
It's a weird experience because it tells you
It's just an assistant. It's not.
it won't do it for you. It won't do it for you. If you don't know what you're building, it won't do it for you.
It's an assistant. This one is not gonna do it for you unless you know what to do.
Yeah, and the more, and I think there was a presentation of a few months ago at an event where a cybersecurity expert came in and told us how he ran like 1,000 plus simultaneous pen tests. And I was like, well, the only reason this worked for us was because this was a very well-known task for them. They knew how to do it very well. And if you don't know how to do a task, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Nexus, whoever, will just not do it for you well. It'll be something that's average, maybe, if you're lucky. Or it'll just be bad work. So for me, like when I use it for marketing, or use it for writing, or use it for data analysis, like if the task for me is not well known, then I'm not able to get good results.
Are you co-founder of this company or
Just the VP of GTM, yeah.
contractor?
Employee of the company. Yeah. Right, so coming back to this to round out, so I hope by now you have an idea about how AI can 10x your work, even more so beyond your own usage. At least that framework of like better prompts and context, better output, and giving more detailed context and how that can help. And how AI can be part of your work. Like right now, my day-to-day job has changed compared to like 2-3 years ago. It's mostly centered around tools like this, where I go and like I help save myself time every day. And yeah, I'd say like a lot of it is process. Like I said before, it's like if you don't understand the end-to-end process of what it should be, it's going to be very hard to get a good output out of the AI. So spend time understanding the process. Even if it's very simple, if the AI has it documented end-to-end, then it's more likely to succeed. Same as a like new employee. So this is the one thing I'll leave you with. Get your AI on and then pick one task and then show it the ropes if you haven't already. I know a few of you have already, so pick another one, add more to your stack, and then see how much of your day can you really automate. And last but not least, thank you. And then we have time for questions.
Just one thing before the question. If anybody want to share the X handles with us or LinkedIn to tag you in a post, do it live or on Luma. Thank you.
Where do we share?
Well, with me after.
Find us.
Yeah.
Any other questions that you didn't get to ask during the presentation? Happy to kind of spend a few more minutes now. If not, then
I like asking AI how to use AI. Like, because each AI has a particularity, obviously. And I was curious, what's your experience in asking ChatGPT, for example, how to use the text, how to use graph, how to use, are they accurate?
I don't think I've ever asked AI that specifically. I've asked AI to review. Yeah, I would definitely try it. Like, I've asked AI to review other AI's work, knowing it's AI. But I haven't like asked how to manage quality.
Funny enough, he knows, can tell you how to reduce it, but a lot of the time he doesn't know about this functionality. So try to ask Claude, how do I do something in the Claude?
To ask the AI.
Yeah,
He
also
know how to.
Also with Nexus it's interesting
change the setting or.
to ask that, yeah.
That's what I was curious if ChatGPT can know about how to use this another AI, you know.
Not really, they don't really have this, which is weird. I mean, the first thing that I train an AI to learn is how to use itself.
Yeah. You'd think that, yeah. Be the first thing. Anybody else?
How do we use this on mobile?
It works on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's browser based.
Yeah.
We have to open the browser.
Yeah, it's browser based. We haven't got it. Well, it's not yet. It's only been out for a month.
You can buy
One
Yeah. It's fresh code. Right, well, thanks a lot. hopefully this was helpful, and yeah, enjoy the pizza refreshment, and hopefully you can hang out for a bit.
Thank you.